6:30 a.m., Sydney Harbour. A team of Australian Navy divers heads out on counter-terrorism exercises. Their mission, to swim from their Zodiac toward the Navy's warships without being detected.
What they were trying to do was see if this bit of equipment could detect attack swimmers coming into Sydney Harbour to put bombs on our ships. So we were acting as the attack swimmers.
Surveillance camera mounted on the warship records the entire operation. They get into position at Garden Island, just around the corner from the iconic Sydney Opera House. In the early morning gloom, Paul de Gelder has no way to know that a 10-foot bull shark is on the prowl.
Every time that I ever got into the water as a diver, I always thought of sharks, instantly. Every single time, I was petrified of sharks.
Just after sunrise, Paul hits the water. He's swimming on his back, trailing his arms by his sides.
I was actually on my first run. And I looked over my left shoulder to make sure I was going in the right direction. And before I looked back, there was a huge whack in my leg. And then I looked down, and there's this massive shark's head attached to me. I can see the lip pulled back, I can see the gums, and I can see just these teeth, row of teeth all the way up across my leg and over my wrist. And then my survival instincts kicked in. And I thought, I've seen Steve Irwin. I've seen Discovery Channel, I'll jab him in the eyeball. So I cocked back and I hit him once, and that did nothing. And he just started shaking me. And that's when the pain really kicked in. It was tearing the hamstring out of my leg and tearing my hand off while I'm there and conscious and alive and totally feeling. And it hurt with an intensity I can't even describe. All I could do was just flop around in the water while this monster was shaking me. And I thought I was dead.
Shark attack victims rarely see it coming. But every now and then, a person comes face to face with the shark and survives.
My arm was in the shark's mouth.
The bottom teeth of the shark went through my surfboard, and the top teeth were lodged into my back.
Just before I was about to stand up and ride the wave, two sharks came for me.
And in very rare cases, the attack is caught on camera.
Whoa!
In Paul de Gelder's case, the Navy surveillance camera captures the chilling moment a bull shark drags him under. But this is just round one.
We popped to the surface and I took a quick gasp of air because I figured if we go back down, I'm going to need some air. And it was lucky I did because we just went straight back underwater. The shark continued to shake me, basically like a dog would a rag doll.
Razor-sharp teeth ripped through Paul's wetsuit and punctured down to the bone. The wild shaking action strips all the flesh from his thigh in an instant. Then the shark lets go and simply disappears.
All of a sudden, I was free. And I popped to the surface and I saw the safety boat in the distance and I went to take my first stroke out of the water to get away and I lifted my hand up and it was gone. I was swimming through a pool of my own blood. It was just this big pink plume all the way around me.
Even now, the highly trained diver stays in control.
I just focused on getting to that safety boat. That was all I wanted to do. Swim as hard and as fast as I could with my one hand and my one leg.
Instantly, the other divers rush to Paul's aid. He loses close to half the blood in his body by the time they reach the wharf.
My chief said to the new guy, you're going to have to put your hand into that wound and hold close that artery with your fingers. So he had to sit there for about 5 minutes, pinching close the artery inside the wound of my leg.
Paramedics rush Paul to the hospital for life-saving surgery, requiring nearly 300 pints of blood.
So the shark had basically removed all of my hand, except for one finger. I think my thumb was almost inside out. There was a bit of thumb meat, But that was it, and there was nothing that could be salvaged.
The attack leaves Paul's upper right leg useless, with no muscles and no nerves. He chooses to have it amputated. Paul's recovery is almost as remarkable as the attack itself. He even dives again, with sharks. One question remains. How did Paul escape the jaws of a massive bull shark? The first strike comes at lightning speed from below. There's nothing Paul can do to stop it. It's what he does next that counts. He stays calm and fights back. Possibly, the shark realizes it's got the wrong prey. It breaks off the attack after just 8 seconds.
I think everything just fell into place for me. Someone was smiling on me that day.
Such glimpses of a shark attack in action are few and far between. The most detailed one ever caught on camera happens as a TV crew films a shark show. They're rolling multiple cameras, as Eric Ritter explains that the circling bull sharks don't see humans as prey. One shark disagrees.
The first bite was like a clamping, an exploratory bite.
What happens next is exactly what happened to Paul de Gelder.
I felt a little break, and then I felt the real bite. But I realized when she clamped on the second time that it was a full bite.
The fully grown shark's serrated teeth strip the flesh clean away from Eric's calf. As cameras capture the horror of a shark bite. Despite his gruesome injuries, Eric still believes that there are no dangerous sharks, just dangerous situations. Eric willingly put himself in one of those situations. But with more people than ever enjoying the oceans, we're pushing the boundaries. And sometimes a shark takes offense. Nurse sharks are usually harmless, until you try to kiss one on the lips. They have thousands of razor-sharp teeth. This diver is lucky doctors could save his lips.
Here we go! It just hit the bottom of the boat!
Another questionable idea, trying to hand-feed a giant hammerhead.
Look at that! Oh my God! Did you see that?
That's one encounter that could have ended very differently. But those people are the exception. Most of us aren't looking to meet a shark on vacation. The Mexican resort town of Cancun is not a place many tourists associate with sharks. Mother of two, Nicole Moore, is in Cancun for a stress-free getaway with a group of girlfriends.
Halfway through the vacation, the girls decided to go shopping and I stayed behind because I had a scuba diving trip planned.
Nicole has no idea that two of the world's deadliest sharks call these waters home. Aggressive bulls and opportunistic tigers. Both tropical sharks live and breed in the Caribbean Sea. While waiting for her scuba tour, Nicole plays volleyball.
When I finished the game of beach volleyball, covered in sand head to toe, of course, I thought, well, I'll go into the ocean and rinse off. And I went in about halfway up my body, so up to my waist. Before I could decide if I was jumping into the water, I just heard these guys on Sea-Doos yelling at me. But they were screaming at me in Spanish, so I had no idea what they were saying to me. And I thought they were telling me to get out of their way. So I put my hand up and said, okay, sure, away I go. Turned around and started walking back into shore. A few seconds later, I felt a bump from behind. It was a pretty good bump, but it didn't knock me down or anything, and I kind of looked around saying, what was that? And again, seconds later, I sustained a first shark bite to my left upper thigh. It went right through my leg as if it was eating butter. And this water just started filling up bright, bright red with my blood.
As Nicole Moore wades into the tropical waters of Cancun, Mexico, a shark bites a chunk out of her leg. Surrounded by a pool of her own blood, the mother of two can't see where the shark is. Seconds later, she's bitten on her left arm. In the confusion, Nicole can't tell if it's the same shark or a second one.
My arm was in the shark's mouth. Its upper jaw up at the top, so we were looking eye to eye. Those kind of real black void eyes. Those are creepy eyes, creepy things to look at. My instinct was to just hit the shark in the nose. And as I hit it, I pulled my arm out. The feeling is one of ultimate terror. Not knowing, where is the shark? Is it going to come get me again? That panic of what's underneath this water. Am I going to die here? Is this how my children are going to lose their mother?
One of the jet skiers rushes to Nicole's aid.
I lunged at this one guy on the Sea-Doo, and we were able to lock fingertips. And he gunned it. He just beached his Sea-Doo on shore and pulled me to shore.
She's bleeding to death. But the bystanders are all too shocked to do anything.
It was a horrific scene. I mean, I was bleeding so bad there was arterial spray. I'm missing a huge piece of my leg that's torn.
Nicole takes charge of her own first aid.
And as soon as I said, you need to help me, immediately people grabbed towels, grabbed t-shirts, hands. I remember this big pair of warm hands that just thumped right down on my leg to block one of the arteries that was bleeding.
It takes around 45 minutes before an ambulance arrives to take Nicole to the ER. One of her friends found the flesh the shark had bitten off her thigh.
And they sewed that back on my leg, and they were able to start closing some of the wounds on my arm.
Mexican surgeons saved Nicole's life. But 4 days later, she's transferred to a Canadian hospital where doctors inspect her wounds.
And the stuff that came out of this wound was incredible, and I just went, ooh, that's not good. And my physician, she said, no, that's not good. Closed it up, looked at the next wound, and immediately just yells at her team, go clear an OR, we need an OR stat. She's going right away. In Mexico, they had sewed that flap that they had found of my leg back on, but they never attached a blood supply to it. So in the 5 days that it was on there, it had completely rotted right through.
Nicole's wounded arm is now so badly infected, the doctors have to amputate it.
And my physician told me straight out, if I had arrived 24 hours to 48 hours later, I would be dead. I wouldn't be here.
The tragedy is, it could all have been avoided. The men on the jet skis were actually trying to chase the sharks away from a neighboring resort, where the beaches had been cleared.
I was walking in on an angle just as they were coming, the other way on an angle, wrong place, wrong time. And so these sharks just encountered me instead.
Local authorities blame the attack on bull sharks, which are known to come close to shore. But Nicole is not so sure.
Every picture I have looked at of a bull shark, I say, that's not it. I look at tiger sharks, and I say, that's the shark. That's the shark that I was looking at eye to eye.
Tiger sharks are reported to be responsible for 29 fatal attacks on humans. Only one shark has killed more people. The great white. If the thought of meeting a great white shark sends shivers down your spine, imagine being attacked by two. In July 2000, Shannon Ainsley is a surf-crazed 15-year-old from South Africa. An unwitting tourist is shooting home video as Shannon surfs Nahun Reef, a world-class wave with one serious drawback.
Nahun Reef is definitely famous for its sharks and shark attacks.
There have been 16 attacks and 2 fatalities in the area in the past 20 years.
I was so scared of Nahun Reef, and everyone would always say their prayers before they surf and say, hey God, please keep us safe today.
The risk is greatest in winter, when billions of sardines migrate along the coast, pursued by tens of thousands of dolphins and seals, and a huge number of hungry sharks.
I think I had been surfing for about an hour or hour and a half.
Shannon has no idea that there are sharks around today.
I started paddling for this wave, and just before I was about to stand up and ride the wave, 2 sharks came for me.
The shark on Shannon's left bites his hand and surfboard and sends his legs flying into the air. Then it drags him and his board under, just as another shark moves in. The second shark narrowly misses Shannon as he gets pulled beneath the waves.
And the shark on the right was going for my head and my shoulders. But it missed me, fortunately, because the shark on the left got me first.
Time slows down for Shannon.
And I remember just staring at the shark face to face with his mouth wide open. And I could see his one eye staring right into my face. And I could see all of its teeth. The fears and the thoughts and emotions I was going through were just indescribable. I was 15 years old. I wanted to surf, and yeah, these sharks just attacked me, and I'm about to die. And then the shark swam past me to my right and around me and then bumped me from behind and just shoved me forward. So I swam to my board, and as I did that, I saw my fingers hanging off my hand and blood just squirting and rushing out of my hand and fingers. No one stayed in the water to help me out. Everyone just bailed and left me in the water all to myself. And at the same time, the ocean went dead flat. And I was looking to my right and to my left all the time, waiting for these sharks to come back for me any second. I prayed and said, hey, Jesus, please, I need some help here. Please help me out. And all of a sudden, this wave came out of nowhere, and all my fear just disappeared.
As he catches the wave to the beach, Shannon's fellow surfers finally come to his aid.
One guy tied a leash around my arm, and another guy wrapped a towel around my hand to prevent the bleeding.
Shannon's brother rushes him to the hospital.
The first thing I asked the nurse was whether I was going to lose my hand or not, and she was like, no, you'll be okay. And after that moment, I was extremely happy and relaxed and stoked to be alive.
Being attacked by two great whites is the ultimate in bad luck. But then to walk away, almost unscathed, how lucky is that?
There was some kind of divine intervention because there was no way I should have lived and survived that at all.
But who says lightning never strikes twice? 4 years later, Shannon again comes face to face with a great white shark.
My heart just sank and dropped, and I thought that it was happening all over again.
At a surfing competition in South Africa, shark attack survivor Shannon Ainsley is paddling out. His own incredible escape from two great whites 4 years earlier is still fresh in his mind when the unthinkable happens.
I heard this commotion, and I turned around, and there's this 3-meter great white shark attacking this guy, Joseph.
The shark has Joseph's board in its mouth. Shannon remembers what it was like to be left alone when he was attacked.
I turned around and went back to him. And the shark was like a meter away from me, and I could have reached out and touched the shark. So I put him on the surfboard, and we kind of paddled towards shore together, and at that stage, the shark swam underneath the water and disappeared with his surfboard in its mouth.
Authorities later find the board bitten into 3 pieces. Incredibly, both surfers escape unscathed. Not every shark encounter ends that well. You underestimate a shark at your own peril, even when you think you've got the upper hand.
It's got you good. I told you don't bring him in the boat.
But every now and then, a shark overestimates its own ferocity. This brave little carpet shark attaches itself to a scuba diver and just won't give up. Some sharks do hold on. But in most cases, a shark attack is over in a few life-changing seconds. More than 400 miles south of New Zealand lies isolated Campbell Island. In 1992, a 5-person crew is stationed on the sub-Antarctic island to make weather observations. It's a job that leaves Mike Fraser plenty of time to indulge his passion for underwater photography.
I wanted to get into the water with the southern white whales, because I understand that at the time no one had really dived down there with the whales, and I wanted to get some underwater footage and so forth.
The island is home to elephant seals, sea lions, and in April, southern right whales that come here to calve. All perfect prey for great white sharks. But in 1992, no one believes that great whites come this far south, because the water is just too cold for them. On the 24th of April, the entire station crew hikes 2 hours to the remote bay where the whales calve. Although it's sea lions they encounter first.
I hadn't dived with sea lions before, and I did have some bad feedback from some people who had dived with them previously, saying they were a bit aggressive. But as far as running into a shark, it just never crossed my mind.
Using only a snorkel, Mike starts his reconnaissance of the bay.
I was 50 yards out, the water was about 12 feet deep. And by that stage, I'd actually pretty well seen what I'd wanted to see. Right at that time was when I just felt this big hit on my right-hand side. And the first thing that crossed my mind was that I just got hit by a bull sea lion. It was just a hit. There was no pain. It didn't feel like a bite. And that's when I looked across to my right-hand side and saw my right arm down the mouth of a shark. The arm is down its mouth up to just past the elbow, and its head is there, its eye there. It's that image that's stuck in my head. I knew it was a shark, but then my brain said that I should feel something. There must be some pain. So it was almost as if I was dreaming.
As the 13-foot shark drags Mike under, it rearranges its grip on his arm and bites it off just below his elbow.
I was effectively free from the shark then and bobbed back to the surface again.
His arm completely severed. Mike is rapidly losing blood as he kicks his feet desperately for shore.
I was just waiting for it to come up again and bite me on the legs or on the feet where all the splashing was.
The shark continues to circle. Mike reaches the safety of the rocks, where his companions pull him out of the water.
That's when we noticed that the left arm was quite severely damaged as well. There's muscles pulled out, nerves cut, tendons missing. That had gone into the shark's mouth and back out again, and I can't even recall that being in there. That must have just gone in and out so fast. I've just got no recollection of it.
Mike is rapidly bleeding to death. His friends do what they can to staunch the flow, but the nearest rescue helicopter is in New Zealand, 400 miles away.
There was just no way a chopper was going to get there until maybe 6 o'clock the following morning.
Somehow, he survives the night. The next morning, he's airlifted to the hospital.
They had to chop a little bit of bone off the right arm, off the right stump, so it actually could get some skin in it to grow around it. With the left arm, I think they tried to work out what exactly was damaged, what tendons were cut, what nerves were cut, how much muscle was missing.
It takes 6 months for Mike to recover. To this day, he has only limited use of his remaining hand. A great white shark attack so far south astonished the experts.
I got a lot of letters from overseas shark biologists questioning whether it was a white because it's supposed to be too cold. Well, it was a white. I saw it. They've taken teeth fragments out of it that was left on my arms. They've been looked at, and it's a white.
For those who'd like nothing more than to get up close and personal with a great white, cage diving is now a popular attraction. The gap in the cage is just wide enough to give the divers an unobstructed view, as tour operators lure jaws in. But are we now pushing the boundaries too far?
Oh, stand back, stand back. Whoa!
Cage diving with great white sharks is not for the faint-hearted. But in 2013, one such encounter gets much too close for comfort.
Whoa!
Recorded on a cell phone, the shark twists and turns and gets those mighty jaws within inches of the divers.
You went through. Holy stand back, stand back, stand back. Are you okay? Whoa.
That's one lucky escape. The vast majority of shark encounters happen because of coincidence. Wrong place, wrong time. Of course, all bets are off if you put your hand inside its mouth.
That's a lot of blood, dude.
Or if you forget to put down your beer.
Baby. Whoa! I told you, don't get your hand near that mouth, dude. They'll shred you.
Sharks remain dangerous, even when we take them out of their domain.
You bastard.
Because surfers spend such a lot of time in the shark's world. Theirs are the attack stories we hear most often. Northern California, October 30th, 2012. and the surf in Humboldt Bay is pumping. A hardcore community of surfers in full-body wetsuits braves the 50-degree water in search of the ultimate ride. But 25-year-old Scott Stevens knows that this is the scariest time of the year to surf in Humboldt Bay.
October is often called Sharktober, just because there's more sharks in the water that time of year.
It's the time of the annual salmon run, small prey for a great white, but a delicacy for harbor seals. And seals are the great white's favorite meal.
It's the whole food chain that time of year. You're part of it. So it's a risk you take, and you realize that. And to not, you're kidding yourself.
Any fears Scott has subside when he starts catching wave after flawless wave.
I've been surfing for about an hour and a half. So I was paddling back out through the channel and headed for deep water. Just got out of the corner of my eye, saw a black shape, and just felt a weight land on my back. My first thought was harbor seal. I thought a harbor seal had jumped out of the water and landed on my back. It started to drag me underwater, and I felt one really good shake. Then I realized it definitely wasn't a seal, it was something a lot bigger. That's when I opened my eyes underwater and caught my first look. The shark. And that's the moment that everything changed. It went from a normal morning to I'm gonna die in the mouth of a shark. It almost looked like the shark was smiling at me. It had just this mouth of snaggled teeth.
The 12-foot-long shark has the left side of Scott's body clamped firmly in its jaws.
The bottom teeth of the shark went through my surfboard, and the top teeth were lodged into my back. My first instinct was to start punching the shark. But I got one punch right behind the shark's left eyeball. You know, it all happened so fast. It was a matter of a second or 2 seconds underwater. And then it let me go. I came up to the surface, and I was just left floating there. I didn't even realize that I was injured until I started seeing this pool of red around me. I put my hand back onto my torso, and I thought my whole side was gone. It just felt terrible, just disgusting. There's nothing left.
Badly injured, Scott barely manages to paddle to shore, where one fellow surfer rushes to raise the alarm. Another applies pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding, or Scott will die before paramedics get there.
I remember screaming in pain, and he just said, as long as you're feeling pain, you're gonna make it.
25 minutes after the attack, Scott is in the ER.
I ended up with 6 about 12-inch long incisions from my armpit down to my hip.
It takes hundreds of stitches and staples to put him back together.
Because the incisions were so sharp and the shark's teeth are so fine that the skin actually went back together pretty well.
Scott was lucky that his surfboard protected his abdomen from the lower jaws of the shark.
If those bottom teeth had clamped down with the top teeth, I wouldn't have survived.
In fact, only about a quarter of great white shark attacks on humans end in death. Like Scott, most victims are very lucky. And one of the luckiest to be alive is Heather Boswell.
Oh my God.
One of the most famous shark bites ever filmed is the moment 19-year-old Heather Boswell loses a leg to a 14-foot great white. Experts believe the shark isn't attacking Heather, it's investigating her. If it wanted to kill her, she'd already be dead. In fact, many great white attacks are relatively gentle when you think of what they are capable of. Of course, even a gentle exploratory bite from a great white shark can be life-threatening to a human. As a young girl discovers in 2009 on the Australian island of Tasmania at Billabong Bay. Riding their first waves, Hannah Meagle and her older cousin Sib have no idea what is hunting just beyond the break. A monstrous 16-foot great white is watching Hannah from below.
So we were sitting out waiting for a set to come in, and everything just went really quiet. I looked down at my leg and there was just this big grey black shadow in the water. Before I could really do anything or move or even have a chance to think, what is that? It had hold of my leg from my knee down. The bite felt so gentle and like there was no pain. It was like nothing from what I would ever imagine a shark bite to feel like.
Then comes that moment all survivors describe. She comes face to face with the shark.
I can remember this massive head looking straight back at me. And its gums like pulled back with its teeth showing.
Her cousin Sib rushes to Hannah's aid.
He started punching it in the side of its head and he said it was just like a brick wall.
But the shark does let go.
And then Sib's like yelling at me, he's like, get on my board, get on my board.
Just as she climbs onto Sib's back, the shark bites Hannah's board, which is still attached to her by the leash. It drags both her and the board under.
It was just this big rush of water and I was being pulled backwards and, you know, like our hands like let go of each other.
The shark bites a chunk out of the board as the rest of it rockets back up to the surface, with Hannah still attached. Again, she clambers onto Sib's back.
Somehow, on this tiny little surfboard, the two of us, we managed to catch this wave.
Sib tourniquets her leg while waiting for the paramedics.
I could lose a lot of blood here. I could die on the beach.
Hannah is rushed to the hospital, where doctors use 200 stitches to close up her wounds.
This one was the worst one, and this one, because I both went down to the bone.
The bite heals, but she's left with permanent nerve damage.
I can feel down from about my ankle down, and then it just goes numb all the way up to just above my knee.
Since that day, Hannah has been fascinated by sharks, but she no longer feels comfortable in their domain.
I haven't surfed for about nearly 3 years since it happened. Like, it really sucks. I miss it so much.
When we enter the water, we enter the shark's world. We are the visitors.
People have this preconception that the oceans are our backyard swimming pool. They're not. That's the wild out there.
I'd hate to think the number of times that the sharks did actually see me before this happened. Most of the time they see you, and you never see them.
Although every human-shark encounter is different, many survival stories have striking similarities. The moment survivors come face to face with the shark is seared into their memories.
Every time I retell the story, I get a little bit fuzzy and nervous and my voice cracks. Yeah, it's like reliving it.
Despite their gruesome injuries, many feel no pain. And even those who lose limbs don't blame the sharks.
Although a shark ripped my life apart, took my arm, took my leg, I don't hold any ill thoughts to any shark at all.
I definitely think that when a shark attacks a human, it's a mistaken identity. So that's why sometimes they'll bite the surfer and let go of him.
These survivors all had the bad luck to be in the wrong place at the worst possible moment.
It's an amazing story to be able to tell, and I'm just so glad that I got out of it okay.
Crucially, they all made it out of the water alive and received medical attention fast. At the end of the day, escaping Jaws all comes down to luck.